Hey guys, thanks for joining us for another episode of Crew Talk, the official podcast for Bombers CrossFit, where we build healthy humans. This week, we're talking with Mark Obstalecki, who is typically a morning person, but sometimes he comes around in the afternoons. But Mark is a guy who worked out on his own for a while, and so today's episode is all about sustainability. Why even disciplined people might burn out, and how structure and coaching and community can completely change your fitness game. So if you've ever started strong and then kind of fallen off a little, then this episode is definitely for you. Let's see what he has to say. All right, Mark, thanks for joining us on Crew Talk. If you could, just give us a little of your background, where you're from, family life, that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in the Chicago suburbs.
Really? Okay.
Yep, actually pretty close to O'Hare Airport. So my parents are actually both immigrants from Poland, so I have a strong sort of Polish heritage. Yeah. And then the Chicago community generally has a very
there's a big Polish community up there. Yeah,
strong Polish presence. So grew up around there. When I was entering, I think, 6th grade, we moved a little further away from the city, still in the Chicago suburbs in general. Eventually, when I hit college age, I ended up attending the University of Illinois. So I went south about 2.5 hours to Urbana-Champaign. Spent about 6 years there doing an undergrad and graduate degree. Then I moved up to Ithaca, New York for my PhD. I attended Cornell University.
Okay.
And then because of a job opportunity here on the Air Force Base, we moved to the area. We landed in Yellow Springs, and we've been here now for about 8 years.
Okay. So you live in Yellow Springs now?
We're outside the village, but we are within the postal code, so we're within about 4 to 5 miles outside of the Yellow Springs village. Okay.
All right. I had some relatives that lived in the Chicago suburbs. I went up there once to visit them. I can't remember the name of it. It's like in the west suburbs, but there was like a lot of canals or something like that around there, or like a little river walk or something.
Like Naperville is very popular.
Naperville, that's it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So I went there with my grandparents one time. It's a beautiful area around there. So
yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's very different than here. I think like a lot of the Chicago suburbs are really focused around just neighborhoods and shopping centers. So I appreciate the sort of access to rural areas, kind of in the Dayton region, while you still have access to cities like Dayton and Cincinnati and Columbus. Yeah, so I think it's a good blend.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the nice things about here is, there's a good amount of stuff to do in Dayton area, but then you've got Columbus and Cincinnati and even Indianapolis and Detroit, all fairly close together. So if you want to go to like shows and things like that, sometimes you can get those places. So what was your family like? So was it just you, or do you have any siblings? Or
I have a sister, so she's 2 years older than I am. She still lives in the Chicago suburbs, which is also where my parents are. And then here I am married. Wife's name is Leslie, and then I have 2 kids. A 2-year-old named Augustus, and then a 4-year-old named Magnus.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Augustus and Magnus, those are great names.
So Magnus was the first, and obviously with a strong name like Magnus, you have to choose another strong name. So we went with Augustus, and I think it works well together.
So my big fanboy moment was meeting Magnus Ver Magnuson. I don't know if you ever heard of him before. He was in the '90s. He was the strong man. Okay, he was the strong man. Anyway, it was. I got to meet him at the Arnold one year, and so it was really cool.
In this area or somewhere else?
At the Arnold at Columbus.
Columbus, okay.
Yeah. So, he was going around they were doing Half Thor, and somebody else was doing a big event up there at the Arnold, and he was the judge for it. Okay. So because no one would argue with Magnus. If he said that's what it was, then that's what it was.
I believe that, yeah.
So what did your parents do growing up?
My mom, when we were younger, she just worked in a factory, essentially on an assembly line. She eventually retired, kind of a little early, but my dad was a machinist by trade, and eventually he started his own company. So he started a machine shop and eventually gained some employees, and he actually just retired from that business, I think about 1.5 years ago.
Really?
So he did that pretty much all of my life.
That's cool. Did you ever... and you're an engineer now, right?
Correct, yep.
So did you kind of follow into that from your dad, or?
Well, I'd say that machining and engineering are different, right? Mm-hmm. But understanding how we manufacture and how we produce, I think, is an invaluable skill for engineers to have. So I'm a mechanical engineer, so I think obviously if you design some component, whether it's for an aircraft or a bicycle or whatever it is, I think you have to also consider manufacturability and whether or not you can actually make what you imagine, right? Which is not always the case. So I think having that background of understanding the processes involved in manufacturing was useful.
It's about creating a thing, right? You know, I mean, in your sense, you know, designing it and then seeing it actually made.
Yeah. And then, obviously with a machine shop, he's mostly making manufacturing metal components, right? Metal parts. And then just by happenstance, I ended up studying essentially the performance of metals in college in my grad career. So it kind of was a strange place where I landed, which I grew up kind of in the industry of manufacturing metals, but then my research involved studying metals, and it still does today.
Yeah. And what about your sister? What does she do now?
She's in sort of the sort of beauty care industry.
Okay.
So I think she does a bunch of things in there.
Yeah. Did you guys get along good when you were young?
I would say it was mixed, right? I'd say that she was older and didn't always necessarily want to sort of include me in all the things she was doing. And my parents would, encourage us to play together as much. I mean, I think in general it was okay. Maybe what you expect from a brother and sister.
Yeah. So did you grow up like in a real city environment, or was it more suburb? Or
it was more suburban, yeah.
Okay.
So just a neighborhood.
All right. So like growing up, playing, riding your bike, going down to the park, things like that.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So what was your favorite activity when you were young like that?
I'd say my favorite toy was probably Legos, which to this day I still appreciate. So kind of when I left school, I started collecting some Legos as an adult, and I encouraged my kids to do so. But I think that was my favorite, just like building things, random things, right? Just whatever I can imagine. I think that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Did you play a lot of sports or?
Surprisingly, no, not when I was young. In the Polish culture, soccer is, I think, very popular, right? So I was encouraged by my parents to play soccer. So I did that kind of growing up through freshman year in high school.
Okay.
I think I enjoyed it. I never really loved it. I was never the best at it. I think I was just okay.
Yeah.
But beyond high school, I would just play pickup with friends. I never really played on a team or competitively.
And what about when you got out of high school?
Yeah, so in high school, I think I sort of transitioned a bit. I ended up taking a strength training class, so that was one of the classes I was offered, and I think that kind of maybe started my strength training history. So in high school, I really got interested in strength, right, and more of the classic things like the deadlifts and squats and bench presses and curls and different cable machines, lat pull downs, and then throughout high school, I think I was pretty into weight training, so I did it both kind of in school, and then once the class was done, I proceeded to continue that sort of outside of school. And I actually I worked at a place called Party Central, and there was a guy there, Matt, that was super into it, so he was kind of a mentor for a moment, and I did that for a long time. And beyond that, I don't know how, but somehow I got into running, right? And I used to run, and when I first started running, it was just a mile or two at a time. And eventually, when I entered grad school, I started joining a running club.
Yeah.
And then I started doing some real mileage where, those folks would run 30, 50, some of them even 100 miles weekly. And I got into a good rhythm where I was probably running 5 days a week and putting down about 30 to 50 miles for about a year. So.
Okay. Now, were you still lifting at that time, or?
Actually, I was, yeah. So I was kind of a rare breed where I could still bench press kind of a lot and run pretty well as well. So that was when I was in Ithaca, New York, and they actually have a very strong running community. I mean, I knew people there that actually went to the Olympic qualifiers. They didn't actually end up in the Olympics, but some pretty strong athletes. So some really good influences when it came to running up there.
Running like endurance distances,
mostly distance. Yeah, and we did a lot of trail running. We avoided sidewalks and roads as much as possible. So a lot of trails, and typically distances were anywhere from 5 miles to 12 miles on any given day.
Yeah. Did you ever try orienteering?
What is that?
Orienteering is just running on trails, but you use a map and a compass.
No.
And so that's you have to go from waypoints,
No, I've never tried that.
Go through. Yeah.
Sounds fun though.
It actually was fun. I did that when I was in college, and it was a blast. So so whenever someone says trail running, I always wonder about orienteering,
No, never tried, unfortunately.
So what So the weightlifting, when you started, was it at high school?
High school, yep.
Did they have free weights at school, or did they have like machines and stuff?
It was a combination of both. So they had a full weight gym, I would say, or a weight room. Specifically, I think like the wrestling team and the football team would use it mostly. But then during the school day, they offered the strength training classes. So they had free weights in terms of dumbbells, but also barbells and plates and cable machines as well.
How many people were in your high school? Was it a big school, or?
Pretty big, yeah. So my graduating class, I think, was between 600 and 700.
Oh,
so
wow,
it's pretty large.
All right, yeah. That's cool because I mean, now what year was this? What years were you in high school?
I don't remember. I'm 38 now, so however long ago that was.
That's what, people ask me now, how old are you? And it's like, well, what year is it? You know,
right.
I don't know.
I'll let them figure out the math.
Yeah, exactly. So 38. Hey, you're the same age as my son.
Okay.
So. Yeah, so you were in high school around the turn of the century, around 2000, something like that? Yeah. So, okay, that's depressing, but all right. So anyway.
And then the other interesting factoid is my high school also had a circus stunts class. So they had like feats of balance that we would practice, and then I learned things like juggling and riding a unicycle in that class as well. So I think that year I had one semester of circus stunts and one semester of strength training, which are very different, but they both were fun in different ways.
That's a great class for a school to offer. You know, it's I've always been in awe of gymnasts. Mm-hmm. All right. Because you go to the circus or you watch like Cirque du Soleil or something like that, and you see these things and people doing these amazing things, and you think, wow, that's really cool that they can walk on a tightrope, or he can climb this silk curtain, 30 feet or 30 meters up into the air, But then once I did CrossFit and I learned what it was actually like to climb a rope for 15 feet, then it was like, wow, now it's really impressive to see this guy climb that thing, because now I know exactly I have a frame of reference of how hard that really is.
Yeah.
So I think exposure to things like that is really great.
Yeah, it was good. And then you mentioned CrossFit, but while I was running, in grad school, I was also strength training, as I mentioned, and that's when the first time I was really exposed to CrossFit type of workouts. So there was a gym manager named Scott that actually, my buddy and I, Mark, we used to go every morning at 7, and he's like, hey, why don't you guys try these workouts? And he actually gave us a list of workouts. So we only had like 4 or 5, so we would do the same ones over and over. Yeah. I think this is a lot more fun where you have a lot more diversity, but that was kind of my first exposure to it, but it wasn't really as structured. We never had an instructor. We just kind of did it on our own.
So so it was, you remember what time that was? I mean, was somebody like, where were they getting the workouts? Were they just designing them themselves?
I assume they pulled them from the web. I don't know exactly where they came from.
Because when CrossFit first started, like in 2002, they would just post these workouts on the web, and then because there weren't boxes anywhere, and people would just do them, and then they started putting like on the bottom of the note or the bottom of the workout, it'd say post time in comments. Yeah. And so you would just go into it was a blog, and you would just type in the comments, and that's where the whiteboard came from, was you would put your times in there. Oh yeah, I did this and this and this, Yeah. And then people would, and some people became kind of like well known from doing it like that,
And it's strange though, because back then, like I was aware that CrossFit existed, but I think at the time my perception was like CrossFit bad because CrossFit equals injuries, right?
Yeah.
And I sort of, I don't know. I'm sure it's evolved a lot since then, right? But I would sort of disagree with that mindset as CrossFit exists here and today, right? So
yeah, I think and you look back to the early days of CrossFit. A lot of people were working out by themselves in the garage. They would look at a workout on there, and then maybe they would find a YouTube video that would explain how to do a clean or something, and then they would take like a piece of pipe, that doesn't have bearings in it, and then they'd try to clean it, and it's like. Yeah, some of that will lead you to injury too, So it's gotten a little more refined now as coaches have come along and developed and things like that.
Yeah.
So you did running and weightlifting all through college. When did you meet your wife?
We met while I was in grad school, I think within the first couple of years.
In New York or?
In New York, in upstate. And she was working in a lab. She wasn't a student, but she was working in a lab on campus.
Okay.
We had a mutual friend that also worked on campus, so As an aside, in grad school, I worked at a synchrotron. So Cornell is fortunate because they have essentially a particle accelerator, and the particle accelerator generates X-rays from experimentation. And one of our mutual friends, Katie, she worked at the accelerator there, and she put two and two together. She's like, "Mark, you like to run, and my friend Leslie likes to run. So do you guys want to meet?" And that's how we met.
Okay,
it's because of our passion at the time, both for running.
And she was originally from New York, or
she was from New York. Yeah.
Okay.
So Ithaca, New York, is kind of at the base of Cayuga Lake, and then her family lives just up the lake, about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay, it's beautiful up there.
It's really nice. Yeah. 6 months out of the year.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. There's Air Forel's got a hilltop place out there in near Rome, New York.
Okay.
And up on this hill, you stand up on top. It's the tallest hill around.
Gotcha.
When you stand up there, it's just beautiful views. You look around, and I was like, man, this is a gorgeous place to work. And the guy was like, yeah, come here in December and tell me it's not so cool to work up here then.
That's cool. Once in a while, you'd see like an osprey fly over the lake or something.
Yeah.
I assume from Rome.
Yeah. So, wow, that's really cool. So you guys started running together?
Oh, we did, yeah. Yep, mostly on the weekends we'd run together, and that was kind of a shared hobby, shared passion.
Yep.
And she's a very strong runner, so she's run Boston a number of times.
Oh, wow.
I think up until we had kids, and she kind of paused, and then, now she's getting back into running. I think she aspires to continue that.
Yeah. So have you run in Boston too, or?
I have not. No. I ran one marathon, which was the Wineglass Marathon, and personally for me, I think the amount of training it required kind of burned me out of running. And after that, I think I needed a break. So I lost my passion, I think, because of that.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot of training.
Yeah.
If you really want to take care of yourself, it's a lot of training.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's mostly, you do your long run on the weekend, like on a Saturday, and it just would burn your whole day, right? Because you go out and run for 2 or 3 hours, and by that time you're just completely spent, right? And then you lose the whole day. And maybe it was a combination of that in grad school, where just like I had very little free time, and then I felt like during my free time I was just working or training, and then it just spent me, and it was just wasn't the right time maybe. But
Right. So yeah, I mean, qualifying for Boston is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to do. I used to think that when I lived in the Boston area, you'd see all these people that did it, but I didn't understand how difficult it was to really qualify just to get into it.
Yeah, and I think it's only getting tougher and tougher as more and more people get into the sport. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a really popular thing. I mean, marathons have become, if you look at like the fitness craze over the last maybe 15 or 20 years or so, I mean, actually, I remember back in the 70s when running really began to kind of take off, and I guess weightlifting did at the same time. I mean, there was this book out by a guy named Jim Fix called Running.
Okay.
Spoiler alert: he died of a heart attack, but but he was a big endurance runner, and he kind of like launched this whole thing about jogging and stuff like that, and at the same time, the movie Pumping Iron came out, and so it was like running and weightlifting was like this big deal,
Yeah.
But now the events of like marathons and races and stuff like that have really kind of become really, really popular.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate being signed up for like a race or an event, just because I think it helps motivate the training, right? Because otherwise it's very easy to make an excuse not to go for your, Tuesday evening run because you're tired or something else. So I think it's important to kind of stay motivated through some of the competitions or events that are hosted.
Yeah. I think that the only downside is, and it's just like, there's a downside to CrossFit. I mean, if people come in and do things that are crazy, people signing up for like a marathon and then they don't do any training for it whatsoever, and it's like, oh no, I'll be fine. I've ran a 5K once and that was good then. So
yeah, I mean, I've learned about myself that it does motivate me, with that commitment to the event. So I don't think I've tried to fake my way through one of those yet.
Yeah. I think it's a mistake if you do. Like in CrossFit, I think if you're someone who works out on a fairly regular basis, you could run a 5 or 10K just at the drop of a hat. I mean, you could come into the workout one day and we say, hey, we're going to run a 10K. And 90% of the people, probably 95% of the people would be able to run the entire thing, or at least run walking, and get through it in a reasonable time.
I agree. They don't complain a lot, but they still
complain a lot. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, but you can start getting distances beyond that, and it's a different kettle of fish, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. So grad school, then you went for your PhD.
Yep, that was part of grad school. Yep.
Yep. Okay. And after that, did you continue running and lifting, or didn't you come out and you start working? Did you work immediately for the Air Force, or?
Yeah. So I just spent one semester up at Cornell teaching. So I taught a course there, kind of as an interim job, and essentially immediately after that, I came down here. So I got a job at the Air Force working with an AFRL as an engineer.
Okay. All right.
And been here since. Yep.
Yeah. And so did you continue running then, or what kind of activity were you doing at that time?
I think it was a combination. So kind of near the tail end of grad school, I also picked up cycling. So I used to do quite a bit of cycling, just road biking, even while I was still in New York. And I would say that continued after I moved here. I also really appreciated like spinning. So I would go to a lot of indoor spinning classes, especially during the winter months. As I mentioned, Ithaca's a nice place 6 months out of the year, and during the winter, I think it was like a great activity to stay fit and motivated, you know, training throughout the winter. I think kind of after I ended my running career, I picked up a lot of cycling, and then I still run some, you know, especially if my wife motivates me to go out sometimes. I'll go and do it, but it's not what I'm passionate about anymore.
Is she still running now? Or?
She is, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think she's very excited to be back to running now that the kids are getting a little bit older, and I think she'd like to run some more marathons again.
So when you guys got here, that's when you had kids?
Yeah, I mean, we've been here for about 8 years now, and our oldest is about 4.5, yeah.
Okay.
So we waited a few years, but yeah.
And so you got 4.5, and what's the other one?
2-year-old.
2-year-old. Okay, so pretty close together. Not too bad. How did that change things as far as like, you know, it's a little more difficult to go out for a long run in the afternoon after work.
I think Leslie, you know, she's done a lot better job to stay consistent with her fitness, you know, throughout the last 4.5 years, and I would say I've been much more intermittent, right? Because obviously there's a lot of time constraints, right? I think you have to both learn to be more efficient kind of with everything you do in life, right? But also, unless you prioritize fitness, it's not going to happen, right? Because there are so many other things you could be doing, should be doing. I mean, it's very easy to make an excuse to not do it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the mindset has to change, and even with the fitness, I think you're more focused and more efficient, right? You know, you know what I appreciate about CrossFit is it's a very constrained time block, but I feel like you get plenty of fitness in that time frame, right? And there's multiple pieces, right? There's the teaching, the learning, right? And then there's the, you know, even like the warm up and the stretching and the skill development, and then the actual workout itself. I kind of appreciate the sort of diversity that we experience here.
Yeah, it gets, once you get kids, it's a little bit harder to go out for like a 3-hour run or something like that, you know. Where coming into CrossFit, where you've got an hour, and look, I can come in, I've got an hour, and I got to get out of here. Yeah. You know, although you come in the mornings most of the time, right?
Usually, I try to get in a workout before work. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's you know, I always say nobody's competing for those hours early in the morning like that. You know. Especially kids, and as they get a little bit older, they start going to school, they need help with homework and things like that. You know, your afternoons and the evenings just get more and more competition, you know.
Okay. Well, I don't know yet. I guess I'm learning right now. Yeah. And I personally, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of folks here that have young kids, and they still come in at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. and I have no idea how they do that. But
yeah, well, the morning, you know, it's. The thing that you typically see a lot is like couples that will come in and they always work out together. Yeah. And then they have a kid, and then suddenly it's like, well, one's staying home
take turns,
or the other one, and you begin to kind of have to split up a little bit like that. So, but hey, you know, again, it comes down to prioritizing fitness, right? Yeah. I mean, and especially if you work in a job that's, I would imagine you probably don't do a lot of physical labor.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And so you got to get that work done somehow.
You do, yeah. And I've sort of throughout my life experimented with, you know, morning workouts and afternoon workouts and evening. And my personal experience is I really appreciate the morning workouts, just because, you know, you get it done, you feel accomplished, and even if you have a bad day afterwards, you can reflect back and say, at least I got my workout in, right? And I think that sort of brings a little bit more happiness or sort of fulfillment from the day.
Yeah. And if you keep dropping lower and lower on the leaderboard, you just stop looking at the leaderboard. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, right.
So when you first moved here, what were you were mainly biking at that time? Maybe a little lifting?
Mostly cycling.
Yep.
Some lifting, but not as much.
Do you got like a garage gym or something like that, or?
Yeah, so we just had our furlough, right? Because we all know about the government shutdown. So I actually took the opportunity to build a garage gym just a few months ago. But prior to that, we've had a Peloton bike, we've had a treadmill. Most of the time when I strength train, I'll go to like a base gym, or I've been a member at other gyms as well.
Yeah. So what were you doing mainly then when you first got here? Biking, lifting in your house and that kind of thing, or what?
Road biking, right? So I got a nice little course like around the area. I used to do like a 20-mile ride. My real goal was to find as much elevation as possible and create a course that has the most delta H, right? And then just like general strength training in the gym. But like I said, it was very intermittent.
Yeah. So what kind of inspired you then to try CrossFit?
I would say I could definitely observe and feel my sort of health and fitness going down, right? And I was also getting older, which I understand it's probably not a good combination. So I genuinely was trying to exercise and be healthier, right? Where I was going out on runs, but I was lacking sort of the commitment, right, and the discipline to do so. So I decided I needed to try something different, right? And I think we're friends with the Knickerbocker family, and there's a few nudges from Brett's to try out the CrossFit gym, and I initially declined, and eventually I said maybe this is what I need, so I would try it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of what drew me in initially.
And you knew kind of what CrossFit was in the past. I mean.
Yeah. So I knew that the general things, whether it was strength training, strength movements, right, or cycling, if we're on a C2 bike or Echo or rowing. I had done some of that even in the past, just in the gym on and off. But I kind of generally I understood the concept, right? So I think I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. I just didn't know what the intensity would feel like, right, or even the culture would feel like here.
So did you think when you were working on your own before, was it really more of a commitment problem that you were having, or was it just, consistency, or?
It's probably both.
Yeah. It's hard to kind of keep that up on your own, unless you've got a goal that you're kind of chasing or something like that.
Yeah, like I said, but and I think having young kids also just compounds it, right? Because I'd say that we had a lot of struggle with sleep specifically, right? And it's really hard to work a full day and then also not sleep well and then prioritize exercising. So, I think the time I started here also probably coincided with our sleep was starting to stabilize a bit more, right? And I felt like I had the energy and motivation to try something new.
Yeah. So do you remember when you came in here, what your first class was, or?
A lot of people actually talk about their first class,
really?
But I don't honestly know what my first class was.
Okay.
I remember a lot of the 730s at the time were taught by Dylan, before he had to go back to school.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
So he was my first coach, and I think for most of the classes I was here, the first month or so, he was the coach.
So how long have you been coming now?
I think it was since July.
Okay,
right?
Since this July?
Yeah. So
okay.
Was that over 6 months or so?
Yeah. So that's right. Dylan was teaching like all the classes back in the summertime like that.
Yeah.
Because I was away and a bunch of other,
and I started just as a drop-in, right? So I didn't know if I was ready for it, or if I would like it, or if I wanted to commit. So I initially started by just dropping in a couple times a week, and the other thing I had learned with running, and cause originally with running I was dropped into a very intense group where I would go one day, I would completely get physically demolished, and I just couldn't do it the next day because I had to recover. So I kind of anticipated that, where I would come a day, take a day off, come a day, take a day off. So started 2 days a week, and then eventually moved to 3 and 4. And then I think after about 6 weeks or so, or 8 weeks, I signed up to be a member.
Yeah.
Full time.
What did you think? What was your initial impressions when you first started?
I genuinely liked it. I kind of already talked about it, but I like how there are different portions of the workout, which include kind of the warm up. Right, historically, I never really liked warming up or wanted to warm up. I like to just jump into the activity, but forcing me into a warm up, I think is actually good for me, and I appreciate that. And then the coaching, really, right? So I didn't anticipate that there would be as much coaching as there is,
right.
but I do appreciate it and the constant reminders, because like I can't remember all the differences. I probably still couldn't tell you what the difference is between a hang clean, a power clean, and a clean. Right?
Yeah, right.
So like somebody tells me 5 minutes before I have to do them, I like that, right? And then there's always tips, right? And I think each coach has small little tips that they'll give you throughout the workouts, like even things that recently, like the width of your grip, whether you're doing a snatch or some sort of clean, right? I think it really matters, and sometimes just moving your hands by a few inches makes a big difference in the motion, right? But like I never really think about it, right? So somebody else kind of watching you and verbalizing those, I think, is very useful. And then I do like the workouts. They're very punchy, right? Most of them, and they definitely challenge you, right? On top of that, it's the community, right? Which I think for me drives accountability. So I do like seeing the same faces, and when you disappear for a day or a few days, people ask you like, where were you? What were you doing? Why weren't you here, right? So I think the accountability is there, and just the motivation. A lot of days, it could be a coach sometimes, it could be another member. They sort of push me a bit to just go up in a weight or do another rep or something, and I think that kind of motivation helps drive my behavior here, which is great.
Yeah, I love the encouragement, especially if I'm in the middle of a workout and really struggling with it or something. People kind of like calling me on, and it's just motivating. Yeah. So
like deadlifts today, Will's like putting 275 on the bar. I'm like, I wouldn't have put 275 on the bar, but I did it anyways.
Yeah.
So
it's and I like the fact that we work out with all types. I mean, so we've got some people in here who are really solid athletes, and then we got some general population people, and I like the fact that there's kind of like all ability levels.
And I'm never going to be the best here. I'm never going to be the worst here, most likely, right? And I think what I've observed is, despite ability, everybody's pretty much treated equally, so I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in other facilities where, it kind of wasn't that way, where, if you're not really a fire breather, it's like, like, well, you lift back there with the other ones, and I like the fact that Bombers is a little more inclusive atmosphere like that. So,
and for us, I think there are also a lot of people that are the same age as I am, also have kids of the same age roughly. So I think we sort of all are living through the same struggles, right? And we can kind of identify with each other.
Yeah. So what do you think about like the modality? I mean, the mixed modalities, the constantly varied. I mean, that was one of the things that really appealed to me in the beginning. Was that I didn't want to get bored. And I like the fact that it was always something new.
Yeah, I think it serves me very well. Like I've seen with like running, it's like eventually if I do the same thing too much, I think I just get burnt out or bored, right?
Yeah.
There are some people that can run for 20, 30, 40 years straight and just like love running and keep doing it. But I think for me, diversity is kind of the spice of life, right? The other thing I like is that there are a lot of skills that either I didn't know how to do when I got here,
right? And
there are still skills I don't have, right? Like I don't have double unders yet, right? I don't have bar muscle ups. I don't have any of the ring movements, really, right? So there's always kind of a challenge, right? There's always a goal to work towards, and I think it'll take a very long time to try to master all of those skills. So I think there's sort of transient goals you can achieve, but also, like you mentioned, the diversity. No two workouts are typically the same, so it's kind of a good sort of mental break.
Yeah, there's something they talk about, the hopper model, and it's like you want to be generally prepared in a wide range of things so that you're ready for anything that would come out of the hopper. So if you put all these movements in, you spin the wheel, you pull it out, you can do whatever it is, And the thing I like about the hopper model is that it forces you to do things that you aren't good at or things that you hate, but yet you're going to have to do, maybe a scaled version of it, but you're going to have to do some version of it.
Yeah, because from personal experience, I know that when I set my own strength training workout, like I tend to be biased towards the things I like and I'm good at, right? Whereas here, a lot of times I'm forced to do the things I'm not good at, which is probably better for me in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, I would do a lot of, like power cleans and toes to bar and things that I really like, and double unders would never come along. But now whenever I program, if I program a month, I have to put double unders in at least 3 times. Okay. Throughout them, at least 3 times through the month, Otherwise, I'm just not being honest with myself because I've got to program the things that I'm not good at,
Okay. So what are the skills that you're still working on?
Oh, double unders is one of them. I mean, bam. I've been chasing that whale for a long time, and I'm slowly getting a little bit better, So we've got a workout coming up on Friday. And I remember doing it in the open back in 2020, okay? And it's like 4 thrusters and 6 toes to bar, and then I think it's 20 double unders. Okay. And I had just gotten to where I could do any double unders at all at that time. But the only way I could do them is I'd have to do like single, double, and then single, double, okay? So for every double, I was doing 5 jumps, okay? And so my round of 20 double unders is 100 jumps, okay, which is not a really effective way to approach that workout. And so now I can get sometimes 4, 6, maybe double unders in a row, maybe 10, something like that. So I'm kind of anxious to try this workout again because I think maybe I can do it a little bit better now.
Or unbroken. Maybe.
So my record right now is 18. Okay. So 20 would be a new record. I'd love to see that. It's certainly possible. But yeah. So that was 5 years ago. So I mean, if I can 5 years later do better than that, that'd be great.
Yeah. I have a question. Do you ever practice any of these exercises outside of the classes, or do you mostly just focus on it here?
Yes. So no, I do practice some things on my own, and double unders is typically the thing that I do. Although, when I was first trying to get double unders, I got really bullheaded with it, and so I came in, and every day I would do double unders, right? And it was like really aggravating my shoulder. And so my solution was to just get my shoulder really good and warm, where it didn't hurt anymore, and then I would just really beat it to death. And then I just kept doing that day after day after day after day, until finally I couldn't sleep at night because my shoulder hurt so bad. Yeah. And so then I learned, that's not the right way to try and work for them.
There was a quarter here, I think, where shoulders were programmed, or the focus of the quarter. Is that true? We had like was it squats last quarter, and then the quarter before that? I don't.
There was definitely squats. There was pressing. So overhead pressing was.
So that whole quarter, my shoulders just hurt every night, and there were many nights where I would have to take a ibuprofen or something just to be able to sleep better. But eventually I got used to it, but it took a couple months.
Yeah, it's you gotta kind of manage that. And so typically the way we'll do it, like when you're programming for a month, if you want to have a little bit of a focus to it, is a variety of different types of pressing and things. And so there's a lot of different ways you can do that, that would make people do high reps at heavy weight, or high reps at low weight, or lower reps at higher weight, things like that, upside down, like a press it, like a handstand push-up, or even a box handstand push-up or something. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of approach that, and I know that they tried probably all of those different things.
Sure.
So, I'm still dealing with a chronic shoulder issue right now, and so that was a super challenging month. But other things that I've worked on, I was working for a while on getting a ring muscle up, and I still think that's possible. Maybe one day, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to think that potentially I could do a ring muscle up one of these days. Yeah. So again, I gotta talk to him about my shoulder right now. So what about you? I mean, what's the challenge? It's not really endurance. I mean, if you've had a lot of endurance running, and strength is not because you've had some strength. What would you say if you look at the 10 fitness areas? Where is the challenge for you more so? Is it like, for me, I would say coordination is probably my biggest one.
What do you know all the 10?
Yes.
Can you recite them? Because I don't know the 10.
So it's accuracy,
Okay.
balance, coordination, agility, then power and speed,
Okay.
strength, cardiorespiratory endurance, flexibility, and I said I'm out of order, but there's one more.
Okay. I mean, historically, yes, I've had good endurance, right?
Yeah.
But like my peak running career probably also was 10 years ago, plus years ago. So I think I've recovered a lot of it, probably not all of it at this point. I think there's definitely room for improvement when it comes to endurance for me as well. Historically, flexibility, I think, has been poor for me, right? I was never a good stretcher, right?
Yeah.
So I've definitely had challenges when it comes to like mobility, largely like shoulder mobility. I think when I started here was bad. I think it's okay now, but there's definitely still room for improvement. One of the things I've heard other members talk about is just like bar cycling. It's like, I think strength is one thing, but being able to cycle a 100 or 130 pound bar many times, right? And do rounds of it. I think that's like a different skill that is different than strength and different than endurance. I'm not really exactly sure what category that falls under, but I think that's something that is...
There's a lot of coordination in that because there's a bar path and your body just needs to instinctively follow that path.
And I think that touches on like efficiency. I think when I started here, I could do a lot of things, but they were very inefficient, right? And I think as the longer I'm here, I can see some of the movements are becoming more efficient, and in turn that makes them easier, and my perceived performance, whether it's a score or just how I feel, is improving as well, right? So I think that efficiency can still improve, and I think I'm not sure if that's coordination or just kind of learning the muscle memory, right? Because I've never really done snatches, right? I never really did a lot of cleans when I was younger. So those are kind of movements that I'm still learning and perfecting.
Yeah, those are things that take a lot of practice. So in CrossFit, there's a charter that's mechanics, consistency, and then intensity. So the first thing is you need to be able to do one rep right, okay, and then to be able to reproduce that time and time and time again consistently. And then at that point, that's when you would go faster or get heavier or something like that. So like when you talk about cycling barbells, well, it's about getting one rep good first, and then being able to repeat that at a lower weight, something that you can easily manage, so that you can do 10 reps that look exactly the same. I remember watching back in 14.5 in the open, and Rich Froning was doing one of the throwdowns, and he was doing 95-pound thrusters, which is an easy thruster for him. It was thrusters and then burpees over bar facing burpees. But if you looked at, it's like 84 reps altogether. But if you looked at the very first rep that he did and the 84th rep that he did, they looked exactly the same. I mean, if you could lay the video of all the reps on top of each other, the ghost image would be nothing. Okay, and so that's the height of efficiency when you can move along, because there is one optimal bar path for your body. Okay, I mean, there's just one. All right. And so every deviation away from that bar path is just inefficiency. And
I'm not there for sure. I'm still learning. I acknowledge that.
But so the whole thing with that is, though, don't try to go fast too soon. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, and sometimes it's hard, right? Because like you look around you and everybody's finishing their round, and you're like, I still have 3 or 4 reps left, and then it gets in your head a bit. But I try to not necessarily, I don't necessarily want to compete against other people, right? I really want to just compete against myself. Right.
It's kind of a trap sometimes, the competition part of it, because it will sometimes push you to do things more than you should. Okay. And then that really kind of stunts your progress a little bit until you get it out of your head that, hey, look, I need to really focus on moving well. Okay. And then if I do that, then naturally I'm going to increase in speed and weight and everything else, but it's kind of hard to this conversation we were talking about with Jess just a couple of episodes ago. She was talking about ego lifting, and it's looking at somebody else's bar and saying, well, he's got 300 pounds, so I've got to get 300 pounds, so, but it doesn't always have to be that way.
No, I agree.
Or it shouldn't be that way.
And it's a journey. I haven't been here a full year yet, so I think I still have a lot of learning, a lot more potential to realize. But I acknowledge it's going to take time.
I think I've had a coach tell me once that that his favorite person to teach weightlifting to was like a soccer mom or someone who's never done Olympic lifting or anything before.
Okay.
Because they're receptive and will do what they're supposed to do. Where if you get a person who's strong, okay, a lot of times they want to use natural strength instead of technique to get the bar up overhead, and that's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
You know? So we used to have this.
I'm hoping I'm a good student.
I would say, but you're strong, you know, and so sometimes it's getting past that, you know.
Yeah.
How do I not just lift it with my arms,
Sure.
but instead extend my hips so that the hips throw it up there, you know? Yeah. That's the challenge, but that's the thing I love about Olympic lifting and stuff. Again, I say I struggle with coordination, you know, so like the transfer of the movement from your feet all the way up to your arms, you know, is just challenging.
Yep. Pretty much every coach is always telling me to squeeze my butt, right? Extend before I lift the bar.
We got to come up with a better way to say that, though, right? I mean, if you say squeeze your butt 10 times and they're still not, you gotta.
Yeah, but I think it's like you know, you're focusing on so many things at once, right? And you kind of have to learn the pieces and convert them to muscle memory, like each one at a time, and eventually tie it all together, right? So, but just, you know, telling somebody to do this one thing, like, it's hard to just turn it on, right, and just do it every single time. So I think I'm getting better.
But you can only really think about one thing.
Exactly.
You know, there's one focus thing in your mind. Everything else has got to be kind of automatic.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think many coaches, like, I feel like I'm singled out some classes, but what I've been told is because I'm a good listener and I actually try to incorporate the advice I receive. So I take that as a compliment now. So
Coach Lily's got this thing where she says she wants to cue every person in every class. Mm-hmm. And so if you ever feel like you're singled out, you know, it shouldn't be that way, because the intent is to go around and get everybody.
Okay. Yeah.
You know. Even if all you say is something positive to the person, ideally you're pointing out something that they can improve on. You know? But maybe it's just reinforcing something positive that they're doing. But you need to cue everybody all throughout the class so that nobody feels like they're being picked on.
Yeah, I don't mind though. I spent a lot of years in school, so I think I'm hopefully a good student by this point.
I've gotten better with negative feedback, you know, because. You know, positive feedback has never made me any better. It's only when people told me the things that I was doing wrong that I've ever improved. And you know, so I think getting some negative feedback, hey, you did this wrong, you know, we'll get past the ego part of it, you know, and then listen to it, and now I can learn something, you know. Yeah. So I think that's important, but there's ways to kind of like soft pedal that a little bit too.
Sure.
So.
And everybody's different, right? They take feedback differently.
That's right. Every so often, especially in a workout, one of my favorite things is, you know, so like during a workout, you'll use fewer verbal cues, you know, and more visual cues, because most of the time then if someone's a little bit fatigued, their heart's up a little bit, you say something to them and they look at you like this, like, are you speaking to me? Was that English? Or,
yeah. That's the same with kids. You know, sometimes if you tell them something, they won't listen, but just like the right look or the right nod or just the head shake actually is more impactful.
So instead you're saying, no, move this here, like that, okay? That way.
Yeah, there's another one. Keep your knees out. Right?
Yeah, knees out, yeah. So what advice would you give, so having maybe had not a great impression of what CrossFit was in the beginning to now a better impression of what CrossFit is, what would you say to someone who was on the fence about trying it?
I would encourage people to try it, right? But I also have to acknowledge that you have to be patient, right? You know, we're kind of in a world now where we expect instant results or instant gratification, right? And you know, it's I think fitness is probably always a journey, right? Nothing's going to happen overnight. Frankly, I think I got lucky by stumbling upon Bombers, because I think it's the right culture for me. But as you alluded to, I'm sure there are different cultures at different gyms. So if you try a spot and it's not right for you, try another one, right? Don't just give up right away. And I think eventually, you know, you'll find a place where you feel like you belong. Yeah,
I think that's great advice, you know, because there's some places that other people will fit in better. They have just a kind of a different focus or something, you know. Even within Bombers, you know, maybe a different class,
different time,
a different time of the day.
I've never gone to 5 or 6, but I hear the intensity
5 or 6 a.m.?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to come to a 5 a.m.
So I haven't tried it yet.
The 5 a.m. crew is a dedicated crew, man.
I just don't know if I'm ready for that.
Yeah. I don't know. The 7:30 crew they're getting a little out of hand lately, but you know,
A little wild.
a little chatty.
Not mentioning any names, no.
No, but a little chatty. So
Yeah.
this morning it was, you had to walk 4 times for 50 feet, right? And so after there was like 8 people in the class, and after I'd answered that question 16 times at least, okay, how many laps you had to take? I said, I'm beginning to think you guys are just messing with me, But no, they weren't.
Knowing 7:30, they were not.
No, they weren't. They were just, no. And it was kind of funny because one person, I said, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And they were like, hey, how many laps is it?
Well, I was asked that question too today, and I think there might be confusion as to what a lap is. Some people consider a lap there and back, and some people call it just once across the gym.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, it's like when we do Russian twist. Andy always counts them as like left plus right equals 1.
Okay.
My brain can't math that way. So if you're going to tell me 10, where left plus right equals 1, well then just tell me to do 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I can't count otherwise.
Yeah.
So, you acknowledge you're getting a little bit older. I would still say you're spry chicken, but as you get older, have your goals towards fitness changed any, or?
I would say the big thing that I'm trying to do is stay consistent.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think throughout my life I've experienced a lot of cycles where I have a very high intensity or high frequency and very high level of fitness, and then I drop off for various reasons. It could be school related or work related or family related, right?
Yeah.
But I would say at this point in my life, my goal is to just stay consistent, right, and just show up and do it multiple times, as much as I can, multiple times a week. The other thing I'm noticing is like, I'm not as young, right? And as I mentioned earlier, like stretching, right? Warming up is becoming more and more invaluable. I've had, I wouldn't necessarily call them like injuries, but like annoyances, right? Where like a tendon tightens up, right? And that just requires stretching. So like I'm learning more things about my body and sort of the type of maintenance I need to maintain to just feel good and be able to, perform at a given level at the gym. So, the kind of thing I guess I'm learning is kind of listen to your body and adapt and respond to whatever you're feeling.
Right.
Don't push too hard, right? I think I've definitely pushed too hard. So like the rest days are invaluable. I don't understand how there's folks that religiously come here 5 or 6 days a week. Like I don't think I can do that. I think I need to take some days off and when I do, I just come back stronger, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's valuable. So, listen to your body. Don't push too hard. Take rest days. It's okay to take a day off, right? It's not going to hurt you. It's probably going to help you.
Right. Yeah, that's the great thing about classes is that it forces you to stretch. It forces you to warm up. You shouldn't just throw the RX weight on the bar and just immediately start moving it.
Yeah.
I mean,
but when I was younger, I was kind of more of a hothead where I just wanted to jump right in and go 100%. But it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. And we say that, we always joke about it as coaches. Every so often we'll get together and do a workout, especially like on holidays and stuff like that. And 9 times out of 10, we don't do the same warming up that we should do or that we would make a class do.
Yeah.
So.
And take your time and focus before you do a box jump. That's also very important.
Yeah, be ready to jump. That's very, very true. So yeah, and if your brain tells you you're not ready yet,
don't do it.
Yeah, wait a second. So. Well, Mark, is there anything that I should have asked you about that I didn't ask you about, or?
No, I'm content. So I appreciate you and your time and you actually organizing these for all of us. It's really great to hear about other members and their stories. And I know you don't have to do this, but I appreciate you a lot.
No, well, hey, thanks very much. I appreciate you giving me some time to come and share your story with us.
Yep, you're welcome.